I have personally been a huge fan of gaming my entire life, as I'm sure many of you have been. However, unlike many of you, I have never played a single Final Fantasy game. So for the love of gaming, I reached out to somebody who I know to be, at least in my opinion, an expert on Final Fantasy. I've seen him play at least 4 different Final Fantasy games in my own time, as well as several of them multiple times over. He's a fellow gamer, a man of the community, a fireman. Please welcome a very good friend of mine, Kevin George.
So I've been playing Final Fantasy since I was probably 6 or 7, and when I first started, I was kind of too young to really be able to appreciate and finish the games. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause I've played 4, I played 7, 8, 9, I played 10, I played 10-2, I played 12, I played 15, played a little bit of 14. I have not played 16. Favorite Final Fantasy game is actually also the greatest game of all time.
That's very high praise.
Objectively the greatest game of all time, and it would be Final Fantasy Tactics. So not even one of the numbered games. Final Fantasy Tactics just has the best combination of the story is incredible. The way that they do like the job system in it, it's very D&D-esque. You've got your characters and your jobs, and you can, as they progress, as they level up, you can make them a bunch of different types of jobs and stuff. And it's actually set on this grid pattern, like this, like a chessboard. Be a good, chess. And the way the characters can move, some of them can move more, some can move less. So they really, what they mean, Final Fantasy Tactics, it's a very tactical game.
Sure.
And I started playing that when I was 6 or 7. And then when I picked it back up again when they came out with a mobile version, and I just completely refell in love with it because it's wow, this really does have a crazy level of nuance and complexity that you could never stop playing that game. I mean, it's that type of game. You just keep on playing and find different combinations and variations of how you want to play the story.
Sure.
Classes, like D&D classes.
Okay.
You start off as a squire and a chemist.
Okay.
And then from there, as you level those up, it opens up a bunch of different types. It kind of sounds like multi-classing, and it is in a sense multi-classing, but you could become a knight, a samurai, a monk, a black-white mage, you could be a summoner. They even got one that's called a calculator or a arithmetician, where you literally multiply the magnitude of your spells by certain levels character or certain characters' levels and stuff like that. I would say 12 would be the first one that really departed from the turn-based in terms of actually going into a battle and then kind of freezing time. And then each one of your characters, you being able to choose what they do, and then each of the monsters having their turn as well. I think 12 was the first time where you actually... It's not hack and slash, because you actually select the attack command, and then your character will continue to do it. And then from there, you can select other options. And they had a system called the Gambit system where you can set in how to control your other character. So if you wanted to throw a potion once their health got below 50%. Your healer is going to do that. If you wanted them to do, whenever you're fighting something that's weak to ice, you'll have somebody cast Blizzaga or something like that. You have specific commands that you can have already in place going into battle. You could sit there and put your controller down. If you're good enough at it, you could absolutely sit there, walk into a fight, put your controller down, and just watch the magic happen. No. The way that they've kind of done the hack and slash, maybe there's a way, but no, I don't think so. I think you have to really be, the way it's so nuanced now, you have to be engaged, but also have that back level of party command, party control. I think it's a brilliant mix. Right now, we're only on the second installment of the remake of VII. So it's not very fair to necessarily do a one-to-one comparison of them yet, but I will say with how they're doing the remake, I'm in love. I love because it's not a one-to-one remake. It's a little bit different in how the story flows, and I think that a lot of the times when they start doing multiversal stuff like Marvel, at first it was all kind of cool, but then it just kind of gets a little derailed. And a lot of stories have to do that. Stories that sit there and they brew for a long time, a lot of the times that the creators of these stories have to keep making stuff so fans come in, because fans will eat it up, right? And they'll start doing cash grabs. I think Final Fantasy VII is able or is about to do something that is a scenario like that, where they're using some sort of either multiverse or dimension traveling thing, but I actually think that they're about to do it like pretty dang well. I'm pretty stoked for the changes that they are making to the story.
Right.
And it's cool because Remake was not open world. Like the Final Fantasy VII Remake came out in 2020. It's not open world. You are just exploring the city of Midgar. And even then, it's like...
So it's like limited open world.
It is very, very limited open world. It's not open world. Apparently, Rebirth is going to be as close to open world as Final Fantasy's really ever got. This second installment, because apparently there's going to be 3, and that would make sense for how they're doing the story. This is like 2 discs worth of content. So like
Remake or Rebirth?
Rebirth.
Okay.
So Remake would be like 1 disc, right?
Sure.
They're just in Midgar, which is a big part of the story. It's exposition, setting up a bunch of stuff, right? But Rebirth is going to be like disc 2 and 3, which is a ton of content.
Sure.
And apparently we know where it ends.
Interesting.
Which is going to be in the Forgotten Capital, which is where a very, very iconic scene happens. And that's what's crazy about though not being a one-to-one remake, is that they might change some stuff. And they might change a very, very important event that would totally divide the fan base. The last installment of this will be like the last disc of the 4 discs, and it's all in-game stuff. The story really gets convoluted, and it's just in-game craziness and stuff like that. It's a great demo. Go play it. It's awesome. So you get to play as Cloud for a little bit, and then they allow you to... They put Sephiroth as the party leader. Now, you can switch to Cloud. I'm going to soak up every second they give me of being able to play as Sephiroth, because it's freaking incredible. I mean, I've never played... Even in Dark Souls, I've never played as a character that you could just really just feel how awesome and smooth, fast, and swift that they are, and deadly. I mean, it was a huge treat. Matter of fact, when there's like this little scene and there's a monster coming and like Sephiroth's going to fight it, and you're like, oh, we're about to watch Sephiroth, fight this thing, right? And then all of a sudden, it does that thing where it like goes from the cutscene and zooms into the character to you being the character. It's crazy. I was like, he is so fast and so smooth, and it was so fun to play as him. I really hope that they didn't just make that for the demo. And I don't know if they would, because he is very fleshed out. He's got a bunch of abilities. He's super awesome. And that was 5 years ago, Sephiroth, too. So it's like... Yeah, so this is where you kind of get into a lot of the spin-offs, or what they call the Final Fantasy compilation. They had Final Fantasy VII, and then as the years went on, they released different games that are different parts of the timeline of the whole entire story, right? And the demo goes over the Nibelheim incident, which is one of the most, if not the most pivotal moments in the evolution of the characters. I can't give it all away because it's basically, we've played this event before through another character's perspective of it, and there gets a little bit of like amnesia going on in here. So like, for fans that know, like if you know, and you start playing this as Cloud, you're like, oh man, this ain't right. But it's super cool, because we've already played this incident in Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. Now, this isn't really that big of a spoiler because they did they remade Crisis Core and released it like last year or the year before. They want people to play that game before you play Rebirth because they want you to understand the story of Zack Fair, and they want you to see the Nibelheim incident as they want us to believe that is the true series of events. So playing through it as this new, as Cloud, you're like, if you know, then it feels a little off. It's a little different, but it is really cool how they kind of like blended Cloud's perspective with Zack's perspective in this one. It is an awesome demo. They definitely had some kahunas to release this one like that. They knew exactly what they were doing. We now have probably 4 or 5 different scenes or them showing us this Nibelheim incident. So it's obviously very important. And we don't know which one is really the true one. Probably the Crisis Core a version of those events is probably the true one. So there's a scene in Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? The first installment of the whole remake thing. And it's Sephiroth taking Cloud to, I think it's like called the Edge of Creation or something like that. But basically it's removed from time and space, and Sephiroth's basically telling Cloud, you have 7 seconds. I can't remember exactly what, 7 seconds till the end, right? Or something like that. It's very ambiguous what he means there. There's a lot of theories and speculations as to what it means. But basically what I've kind of gathered from it, based off the theories that I've watched and read, it's Cloud and Sephiroth are in other games outside of Final Fantasy VII, right? So they're in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, right? So that's a different dimension, different reality, right? They're also in Smash Bros. They're probably in other things, right? Cloud is in Final Fantasy Tactics, right? So to me, the whole 7 seconds thing is like, in that time, it's Cloud and Sephiroth kind of like dimension traveling and racing each other, trying to figure out like the final solution to their end, right? Now, it could totally not be what's going on. It could just actually be a literal 7 seconds. Doesn't seem like that to me, though. Like, I think that there's some weird stuff going on in there. But I think what they're kind of doing is they're allowing everything that they have to become canon, which is rare. Basically tell them, like, one, beggars can't be choosers. They are willing to give us more content of a universe that we love, right? The creators are willing to put new graphics into one of the greatest games of all time and allow us to explore and flesh out that world a lot more. So it's like, take it, be thankful and just kind of take it step by step and absorb it all, because I mean, it's an incredible story. I mean, it really is. It's a great story. Yes, so are there some changes to it? For sure. But honestly, I think this is going to be one of those things that when you let it air out, once it's all out, and it's get 5 to 10 years down the road, then it's going to start to get fully appreciated. A lot of things in life are like that, right? Like a lot of great albums. At first, they're not big hits, right? But then you give them time to breathe, and people change, and their opinions change on it. I think this is going to be like that. A lot of the people that are kind of upset with the changes probably bowed out very early on. They probably bought Remake and then played a little bit of it and were like, okay, no, I can't do this right. You've kind of got to take it as it comes in and let things aerate a little bit. And I think this is one of those, because just having the opportunity to hop back into that world with newer graphics, be able to feel Cloud, feel that Buster Sword, it's awesome. And I think that they need to definitely give it more chances, because they're going, the creators, the directors, they're being bolder than they ever have been. I mean, truly, just absolutely looking out over the edge and just jumping right off. You know? If you're looking for something that's going to have an amazing combination of story, gameplay, and like just how the music intertwines with it, it really doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't get better than Final Fantasy. The way that they can make these characters so you can invest yourself into these characters. So like, it's not like reading a book. You know, you start thinking of how this character's actions are similar in your own life, right? Final Fantasy does a great job at that. It's kind of like a personality test, right? Because there's so many different Final Fantasies out there, and depending on which one you started with really shapes your perspective, your perception of the Final Fantasy series or universe, right? So it doesn't really matter which one you kind of start with. Just get involved with one of them. Obviously, the eras are a lot different. I think if you start with some of the newer ones, yeah, it's going to be a lot more accessible, but you are missing out on a little bit of what made a lot of the older ones great, which is like having that patience to do the turn-based battle, right? Like, as the Western gaming has kind of influenced Final Fantasy, it's become more of that hack and slash and stuff like that. But I think if you look at Final Fantasy as a whole, it's something that takes a lot. It's very thought-provoking. I guarantee you, if you jump into that story and you start playing as those characters, you're going to be hooked. And there's going to be songs that come out of those that you're going to have in your head for the rest of your life. And it's definitely my favorite game series of all time. And that's another thing why Final Fantasy is great, because like how you interact with your party and the friends that you make along the way. It's not about it's not about this. It's about the friends you make along the way.
Thanks for taking the time to do this.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, no problem, man.
I'm all about some Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I know. That's why I brought you here.
The stylization of the Buster Sword, like I think they've finally come to like a final form of the Buster Sword, which is not my favorite, by the way. Just too textured, I think.
Not your Final Fantasy.
Not my final Buster Sword fantasy at all.